Hi, I'm Nate Eaton. We welcome you to this conversation with the 4 people running for the Bonneville County Commission. We have brought together both seat number 2 and seat number 3 today. They're here to talk about their vision for the future as well as answer a few questions as part of our EastIdahoNews.com political forums. Gentlemen, thank you all for coming today. We have Dave Radford, who is currently serving in seat number 2, as well as his opponent Jonathan Walker, a former county coroner. For seat 3, we have Tony Potts and Bryon Reed. Each of you will be given 60 seconds for an opening statement, followed by questions and a closing statement. Mr. Radford, we will start with you for the opening statements.
Well, thanks, Nate, and thanks to the viewers out there. My name is Dave Radford. I'm a 5th-generation Idahoan. I've been on the commission for 13 years now. Here in Bonneville County, we have a great quality of life, and I intend to try and do my part to help maintain it. We have a wonderful team here in Bonneville County. I work with all of the various offices, but I bring to the office an agricultural background. Right now I still have livestock. I flood irrigate. I'm a member of the Progressive Irrigation District. But one of the accomplishments that I feel strongly about is working with youth. I believe an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I've spent a lot of my time working with the Fair Board. On average, every year we serve about 800 to 1,000 young people in the 4-H program that teaches wonderful values, and they give a great agriculture experience, and I'm just hoping that the voters will recognize me as a Republican in this Republican primary, and that I'll be able to continue to serve. I'd appreciate their vote on May 17th.
Mr. Walker?
I'm grateful for the opportunity to be running for the Bonneville County Commissioner seat, District Seat 2. As Dave, I grew up in Bonneville County. My family moved here 7 generations ago. I grew up in the farm country. I grew up in the 4-H program. My first job for someone else was milking cows and irrigating. And I share Dave's passion in the need to strengthen our youth against the world that they're going to grow up in. I spend a great deal of time dedicating my time with the Boy Scouts and with the drug rehab program for the juvenile delinquent program. I've seen the effects of those things in my service as a division chief with the fire department and as the coroner for Bonneville County. I bring a really broad spectrum of experience and a whole list of new ideas and a great deal of enthusiasm to this position, and I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Potts?
I'm Tony Potts. I moved to this area 15 years ago to go to school up in Rexburg. It didn't take long for my wife and I realized that this was a special place and that we wanted to raise our children in Bonneville County. And so we've spent the last 10 years doing that. As we've done that, we've been able to participate in different events in the community, mostly coaching sports and supporting those in our community who want to make Bonneville County a better place, continue to be a special place. So my goal is to do exactly that. My goal is to make sure that we continue to flourish on conservative principles, make sure that Bonneville County stays a special place, a place where people can come, can find jobs and employment, and enjoy the beauty that is around us. Look forward to being able to serve the people in Bonneville County.
And Bryon Reed, your opening statement.
Thank you, Nate, and thanks to EastIdahoNews.com for what you do in our community. I'm Bryon Reed, and I'm running for Commissioner in District 3. And I'm doing so because I want to help ensure a positive future for Bonneville County. My family has lived in this county for over 100 years. I have been able to raise my children here, 4 children, and I have participated in all the great activities our county has to offer. I would like those same opportunities for future generations, so I want to give of the time that I have now and the experience that I've gained from the commissions and boards that I've served on to help keep the county strong and to help maintain what is already a great place here in Idaho. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. We will start with you for our first question. Transparency in government is talked about a lot. Have the Bonneville County Commissioners been completely transparent, and how do you plan to be transparent should you be elected?
Well, I appreciate that. Our current county commissioners have done a great job, I feel like. They've worked hard for the county, and I know any time that I've gone to see them, their door's open. It seems like there's always a commissioner there. Typically, you can always get in and see Chairman Christensen, and he's been very open with me with the questions I've had. There is some improvement that can be done, and that's through technology. I noticed that our ordinances haven't been added online since about in the mid-70s. It seems like they've gotten to that point. I want to bring an intern into the county to help with some of those chores. I think that they could increase the workload. I think if we got all of our ordinances up to date online, I think a lot of them need to be reviewed so that we don't have some issues that have been outdated. And I think technology in all the various departments can improve the transparency so that the public has better access to all that information. That would be the spot where I can see that, excuse me, that they have gotten a little behind is in technology, and I plan to add that if I'm elected commissioner.
Mr. Potts?
I agree with Bryon in that technology is a great tool that can help us. If you go and try to even search anything on the website, the searchability of the documentation is just not there. I went down to the planning and zoning office and asked for specific information and got told that that's going to be a research project because they didn't have that information electronically. It was all in files that they'd have to go through one by one. Another place that I think we can improve in our transparency is actually making it a point to inform the public on the things that we're working on. I think so often now the commissioners they're doing a lot of work, and I think that they're spending a lot of time on issues, but they're not taking the time, I don't feel, to push that out to the people of Bonneville County so that the people of Bonneville County can provide feedback on how they feel about it. Ultimately, the commissioner position is a position where we work for the people. It's a unique elected office where you're elected and you're paid full-time to work. And we need to make sure that we're honoring the integrity of that and that we're taking the time to go out and to work with the community and find out how they feel. One thing that I've done to do that is I've running for precinct committeeman, and luckily in that race I'm unopposed, so there's only one that I'll have to work hard on. But being a precinct committeeman, as Dave will be able to tell you, it helps you to keep your finger on the pulse of the Republicans in the county, how they feel, the things that they would like to see the county work on and improve on, and so that's another way that I would try to improve that transparency.
Thank you. Jonathan Walker.
Thank you. Well, for 11 years I served as the Republican candidate as the coroner for Bonneville County. And during that time, I proved that I not only have the concept that clarity in government is really important, but put in place a plan where that actually happened. And to my knowledge, the only office related to Bonneville County that actually had an independent web page that provided public information that was updated regularly and an information stream, a channel, so that people could make direct contact and gain the information that they sought related to the office that I held. I believe that that's important, and as I said, I have a plan to actually step in and make that happen, and that's visible through the electjonathanwalker.com and the Elect Jonathan Walker on Facebook, and the information that's available on those two media areas. So, thank you.
And Commissioner Radford.
Well, I believe transparency is very, very important, and I have been in touch with a lot of the various community organizations. I'm on the executive committee for the Boy Scouts of America. We serve over 22,000 youth, and there are 11,000 volunteers. I also have, in terms of transparency on the internship, I think that's a good step. And, as a former BYU Idaho youth advisor, they have to have an internship in order to graduate, and I support that kind of effort. I have a Facebook page, but I'm really accessible. They can call me on my cell phone, they can call me at work, they can talk to me at home. I don't mind the midnight phone calls about the potholes in the road or a bad bridge. I learn more from the people than I do just sometimes sitting in meetings. But I will tell you that transparency is an important thing. I think the public deserves it, and I think that's something I'll always support and I'll always believe in. One thing that on this Republican primary, though, I don't think there's very few people that have served as long for the Republican Party as I have. I've held every volunteer position in the party. For past almost 28 years, I've been a precinct committeeman, and as Tony Potts mentioned, that's a good way to be in touch with folks, not only during the week, but on Sunday, on the evenings. But I think there are a lot of opportunities electronically, and you can go to my webpage, like me on Facebook.
All right, our next question ties in with the previous question and touches on what some of you have already said. It seems that at a lot of public meetings, the only people who are there are the commissioners, the county clerk, and the county attorney, and maybe a reporter or two. How do you get your constituents involved, and how do you work to inform them of things happening that might impact them?
You know, we publish in all the medias that we can. We notify the media when we have meetings. But think about this for a minute. At a budget meeting, which drives 1/3 of the property tax expense in the county, because we lower the levy and we lower the landfill fees, that's something that everybody can support. We don't have a single debt in this county as of this year. That's huge. And I've been part of that team to make that happen. And so when there's a meeting and people don't show up, it might be that they're impressed with what's going on in the county and they're not so concerned or worried. That doesn't mean we don't engage the public, because I think that's very important when it comes to the decisions that we made. Planning and zoning decisions that get appealed from the Planning and Zoning Board. Bryon Reed has served on that board for 8 years. When those come to us and they are controversial, there'll be a lot of people in that room. But I believe that the public are engaged, and they're probably a little more engaged than maybe some of us think.
Jonathan?
Well, it's so astoundingly amazing, actually, to live in one of the few counties that actually does have a balanced budget and no debt. And our commissioners have done a great job in that area. And one of the things that I can do to supplement and to increase and add to that capability is my ability to reach out and get grants to provide for services that we don't have, for equipment that we don't have, for opportunities that we don't have in our community, and provide those things without affecting the tax base at all. And so that's a real advantage that I can bring to the table. As far as reaching out, one of the things I did both in the division chief office at the fire department and the county commissioner was an ongoing relationship with the media to constantly have educational stories about what's going on in our community in front of the people who live here, so that it was available on the radio, on the television, on the internet, and I would continue to do those things. Thank you.
Mr. Potts?
Yeah, I think we just have to continue to get the community involved. If we want to know what the community thinks, we've got to go, we've got to ask them. We have some great resources. We have some tremendous businessmen in our community who've been very successful, both locally and internationally. We have obviously plenty of resources when it comes to agriculture and people that understand the needs of farming that we can go to. So I think it's more a matter of us reaching out and seeking to know what they're after. And as we engage others, then they will want to hopefully participate. It's a choice they have to make. I agree with Dave that I think we do have great confidence in our commissioners, and we're fortunate in that aspect to have the budget that we have, working the way it does. It's tremendous and a great opportunity to step in, and a responsibility as a commissioner to now maintain that moving forward. And so I think that we need to continue to reach out. A simple thing, and Jonathan and I have talked about this in the past, is we can start offering it online. Video conferencing is very easy to do. We can set up a feed that will allow people to access it, to check in, to make sure the commissioners are at their bench, and to hear what we have to say. We live in a technologically advanced world, and we need to make sure that we're keeping up with that. We need to make sure that we're utilizing Facebook, that we're utilizing these other programs. And again, another place that may help, if we don't know how, or want to handle that, we can get interns involved or get the youth involved. I know that having youth participate in government is a great preparation for them in the future.
And Bryon Reed?
Well, that would be my suggestion as well, to use the technology that we have available to us to video stream those meetings, and to do a better job of publishing the calendar and the meetings. The website is somewhat antiquated, and it needs to have some improvements there. And the calendar is sometimes a little bit hard to follow. So I think that that's a good way to make sure the public knows what meetings are coming up. And when there's something important, it needs to be publicized so that people are aware of it. And then beyond that, I would just go to the people. I enjoy getting out and meeting people, attending various civic events in the community, and asking for time to answer questions and to let the audience know what's going on in our county. I think the best way to to improve the conditions in our county is to hear the voice of the people and be able to get larger input. And by attending those functions, I'd be able to do that.
Our third question deals with something many of you have mentioned, and that's technology. The fiber optic discussion is alive and well in Ammon. What role does the county play in developing digital infrastructure, and what is your vision to improve that infrastructure? Mr. Reed, we'll start with you.
Well, I think just to continue the progress that they're beginning to make now. I take my hat off really to Mayor Kirkham and what they have started there in Ammon and the advances they're making there. We're certainly entering a time, that we need better technology, we need better fiber optics, we have a lot more information flowing. And to be able to tie it into the emergency services and everything that's going on will do nothing but improve the community. So, from the commissioner's seat, I think that they just need to be on board and supply whatever is necessary to help the communities continue to build that.
Tony Potts?
Yeah, I would agree. When I was in the software world when the recession started to hit, I actually covered the East Coast, and the Bank of Mellon, does a lot of consulting. And their head IT guy came out and said, "Look, when times are hard, it's when we reach out to technology. And if it's important that we reach out to technology when times are hard, then it's even more important that when times are good that we reach out to technology." Technology does a lot of things for us. It does provide information quicker, makes it more accessible. It also improves the speed of business, which we all know that the secret to making money is business. We need to have businesses that can operate. We need to make sure that we have the infrastructure to attract businesses to open in Idaho Falls and in Bonneville County. I remember what my dad, after I moved here to go to school, my dad came to southeastern Idaho because it fit his job demands. And since he's been here, he's employed 5 to 10 employees in his own consulting business that he has. And we need to continue, whether small or big, to make Bonneville County a place that people want to come to do business. And making sure that we keep up on the technology and have the infrastructure to be able to handle that technology is critical.
Mr. Walker?
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to clear up a misquote in the Post Registers this morning. I have absolutely no apprehension about sitting down and discussing the fiber optics issue with Idaho Falls and with the city of Ammon. My apprehension was in burdening taxpayers with the need to support something that perhaps private industry should be doing. I believe in infrastructure. It's a really important part of education, and for us to build the education program that we want here, to provide education for our children, both primary, secondary, and beyond, we need that really good infrastructure, and that requires high-speed internet. I think the county, as commissioners, should support in every way that they can how to accomplish that. Thank you.
And Mr. Radford?
Well, I've been to the meetings, and I think there's been progress made. But certainly on the emergency services side of it, on the 911 side of it, fiber optics is an important connection that has to happen, not just Ammon and Idaho Falls, but you got to think about Iona, you got to think about Yukon, and you've got to think about the other, other areas of populace in the county. But I believe that the county's in a unique position, and we have always been helpful, and we've been there to just, let's have a meeting, let's try and get this done. But there's no reason for business not to be a partner on this, because it improves all of our lives. And really, without business, we don't have a free enterprise system. Without a free enterprise system, government doesn't get to exist, so to speak. And so my point going forward is that the partnership between public and private entities and the infrastructure that's required to be successful is just a fact of life that we get to deal with. It's an opportunity to help make our county grow. There's no such thing as being level. You're either growing or you're dying. And I'm one of those commissioners that believes in economic growth. That's why I serve on the READY board. That's why I serve on the ASIPTA board. That's why I serve on these infrastructure projects. We've got a lot of success in the county, but we also have some great opportunities and some great cities. Some of the growth that's happening out to Ammon, a lot of people don't realize that that's one of the largest cities in Idaho, 17th largest. People don't understand what great success is going on out there.
Thank you. Sometimes there can be a tense relationship between the county and the city. How do you plan to improve that relationship? Or if you believe it's okay, how do you plan to continue keeping it smooth?
Let me give you some examples, just for example today. The mayor had a business day. Both the mayor, Kirkham, was there, and so was Rebecca Casper, and so was I, as one of the commissioners. There were over 100 people there. They talked about business, they talked about infrastructure, they talked about the pipeline, about the education needs. As you know, the city of Idaho Falls and the city of Ammon and the city of Yukon and the city of Iona have a good working relationship on different projects. We've proven in the past to come together, like for Arriva, and I'll continue to facilitate those kind of things. I don't believe that, that we're in court right now. We're not being sued. We're not suing each other. I mean, I think right now we've got a good working relationship with our cities, and I'm proud of being a part of that. I serve on the Idaho Falls Parks and Recs Board. I work with city officials all the time on different projects. We've got evidence and proof that improvement can, that we can make improvement. But I'm proud of the efforts that we make on development workshop. You could just go down the list, and I think there's a long list of the fuel island that we work together on. We work together on the 911 center. There's a lot of examples where Bonneville County, Ammon, Idaho Falls, and the other cities have worked well together.
Mr. Walker?
It's a complicated issue. Our city, Idaho Falls, our city, Ammon, and the Bonneville County have come together on a number of issues and accomplished a great deal. There are 7 cities in Bonneville County, and they all need to be brought in and incorporated in this process of communicating and working together to solve issues so that they're in the best interest of the individuals who live in Bonneville County. The way I see it, everyone who lives in the county is a member of Bonneville County and should have input with what the county commissioners are doing. I believe that as we work together, we can accomplish far greater things. If you look at the areas where I see vast opportunity for improvement, it's with overlapping coverage from our emergency services and corresponding agreements between those agencies. And I think that can be facilitated through the county commissioner's office by bringing them to the table to communicate and to talk about these things. And I think there's so much that can be done if we work together like a family would, if we sit around the table and leave all the bad feelings outside and talk about things. It's from those strengths that we will become even stronger and become not only noticed in Idaho as a strong county, but be noticed nationwide. And I think we deserve that.
Mr. Potts?
Thanks. I think things are being done. Clearly the county, the cities are working together. The county's helping with that. I think there's always room for improvement. If you ask, we see these events that go great, but if you ask some of the individual employees of the cities that work with the county, there's some concern for how they're treated or the response that they get when they propose ideas. And we need to make sure that we're just taking the extra time to realize that though they're city employees, they do vote for us, and that we need to make sure that we're open to listening, to validating. Now, we're not always going to agree. We don't want to always agree. That's just not the way that things should happen. But we need to be able to make sure that when we don't agree, we can share our opinions, discuss our differences, look for opportunities to work together and try to work things out. And if we can't, we should both leave with the understanding that an attempt was made, that each side was heard, and the decision just didn't work out this time. So I definitely think that there's some work that can be done with that, with the communication there. But I don't want to make it sound like the Commissioner's office is not making things happen. There definitely are projects that are getting taken care of and moving forward. And that needs to continue. But I think we can have a little more, just a little better communication with the cities as we work on those projects together.
And Bryon Reed.
Well, I found the communication between the cities, particularly Ammon and Idaho Falls and the county, has improved in the last few years. I believe the Mayor Casper is reaching out much more and doing a better job of communication, along with Mayor Kirkham. The other cities as well, I believe, are being engaged. Years ago, I was involved in the North Loop project, and there were some issues there that that were difficult, and part of the problem was communication wasn't happening. So we formed a coalition of neighbors out there, and we began an open communication. And that was right during the election when Mayor Casper came on, and we met with her before she was elected, and she told us then that her door would always be open, and that communication was how we would solve these problems before they become a problem, rather than the problem how it had developed at that time. So since that time, I've continued to develop that communication, and I would reach out to all the various cities, the mayors, and I'd be in their office and on their doorstep and communicate with them. I thoroughly believe that communication beforehand will solve many of the problems.
All right, we have one final question before closing statements. There's a lot of talk, especially on the national level, about wasteful government spending. Are there areas in the county that could be cut, and what are they? Mr. Reed, we will start with you on this question.
Well, I appreciate that. Certainly, spending is one of the very important issues for county residents. I've researched our budget pretty thoroughly, and I've been impressed what our commissioners have done with it. They have a pay-as-you-go attitude, and they've been able to fund certain projects, such as the new sheriff station that is being built out in the Emmett area, with funds that have been saved. And so they're doing it the right way, I believe. Our tax levy rate for the Bonneville County is right in the middle of the counties in Idaho. And if you look at the counties that are our size and with similar cities, we are at the lowest. And so our commissioners have done well. I would plan to keep the same thinking that they have that's brought us to this point. I would continue to plan ahead for projects, save the money. Bonneville County has one of the largest foregone balances in the state, and that's because our commissioners have been able to save that money, not spend it, not raise levy rates. And so I would just continue with what is being done. I think they're doing a great job.
Thank you. Mr. Potts.
Yeah, I would agree. I would commend our commissioners on what they've been able to do with our budget and with funding. To be able to be debt free, I think, is a tremendous accomplishment for government, especially as we hear of all the governments that are going on. You know, the concern that if Puerto Rico gets bailed out, then there'll be other cities that will begin to declare bankruptcy. We don't have to worry about that in this county, and we're fortunate because of that. But with that said, I'm sure there's always fat that can be trimmed off. You know, there's always ways that we can save money. We talked a little bit about technology being a great resource, a great way to be able to save money, to enable the citizens to do research on their own instead of having to come and require an employee of the county to do that. There are some programs, I think, that are run by the county that we need to evaluate and say, can we privatize these? There's federal funding to help with it. It's a small portion of our budget that's being used for it, but can we privatize that? Can we allow someone else to take that over, to begin to receive that money that they can then turn around and put back into the county, and see if we can begin to trim that way while helping the revenue of our county to continue to grow.
Mr. Walker.
Thank you. As I've said, it's so nice to be in a county that is solid financially, that doesn't have to worry about how it's going to plow the roads or fix the potholes. Not long ago, my wife and I spent some time in Denmark with some friends and visited a working dairy farm that had been in operation since the 1300s. Now, having grown up milking cows, it was really interesting for me to see that milk came from the same place back then as it does now, from cows. The way we get that milk has changed, and it's evolved over time. Once things came to the United States, the ingenuity that exists here, it evolved with leaps and bounds, as had most forms of technology. I believe that that principle should be applied to how we operate in government and as a society, that the way we did things 100 years ago, or 50 years ago, or 10 years ago, there's probably room for improvement. And we should work aggressively to be progressive in how we change and update our system so that we become more efficient and can go further with what we have, just like we do with our vehicles. I think that's really important, and that's the approach that I would take with regards to taxing and funding in the county, is pursuing additional outside grants. As I said, with the fire department, I was managing between $1.5 million and $3 million in grant funding a year that came in from the outside and went into our community as dollars spent here, which helps our community, and also provided for assets and training that didn't require support from the tax base.
Thank you. Commissioner Radford.
Well, our federal government is $19 trillion in debt. We're now spending our great-grandkids' money, and I hope the viewers understand that there's not going to be a lot of federal help on the way. What we have to do in this county is show the rest of the nation how we ought to operate government. And I think that's what we've done here in Bonneville County. As Bryon Reed said, we're not actually in the middle, we're 16th out of all 44 counties in terms of our levy rate. We also are third out of the 8 large counties in the state in terms of our levy rate. What that takes is planning of all the county offices. You know, the commissioners just don't get all the credit. We've got a great sheriff's office that operates a justice fund. We have a great county jail that's run very efficiently. We have a great treasurer's office. We have a great assessor's office. We have a wonderful coroner right now, Rick Taylor. We have a great county clerk. What I'm saying is that with 460 employees in Bonneville County, with a $73 million budget, when we spend just under $60 million of it, we budget and we spend very carefully, and we don't bet on the come, and we don't borrow money for the future, and we don't have to bond. We can do these projects, and we can do what the public expects, and 90% of what we do is dictated by the state. We are the political subdivision of the state of Idaho. And so 90% of what we do is dictated by the state, but we can do it efficiently. And I'm proud of our employees. I'm proud of all our county offices, and I plan to continue that effort to help make Bonneville County the greatest place to live, work, and raise a family.
All right, well, with that, we will give each of you 60 seconds for our closing statement. Mr. Radford, we will start with you.
Well, it's been wonderful to be here, Nate and Natalia and Stefan and Nate. Yeah, Kevin Hansen, just keeping time. I enjoy being able to be in public service. I've worked for 3 United States senators, so I bring to this office a background in working with the federal government. And I also bring to this office a background working in the state legislature. I was appointed by Senator Mike Crapo as Sergeant of Arms of the Senate. I supervised the pages over there, so I understand how bills become law and how they affect county government. But I also believe in federalism. I believe that most of our problems can be solved locally. And so I'm running for that very reason. I believe that the Republican Party has the principles and the ideals that can best save our nation. And working together for limited government, less regulation, more individual freedom, more initiative for business, let business do its thing. It creates a lot of friendships, and if we continue to live in the low crime rate that we do because of the values that we have, those are the kind of things that I want to continue to work forward as your next Bonneville County Commissioner in this District 2 seat. It's been a wonderful opportunity to serve the public. I'd like your vote again on May 17th.
Thank you, sir. Jonathan Walker.
Thank you. A year and a half ago, my wife and I returned from 2 years of humanitarian work in Eastern Russia. And that left me with an incredibly deep-seated desire to come home and strengthen families here and strengthen the values, the Republican values that I was raised with in the youth of today, and to help them understand the importance of actively participating in what goes on in their government. I look back and had their people become involved, they would not have suffered the 80 years that they suffered because they failed to become involved. So I would reach out to everyone in the county. I'd reach out particularly to the younger generation who maybe have never voted and say, this is your government, this is your country, your elected officials work for you. Please vote at the primary on May 17th. If you choose to vote for me, I'll be a hardworking candidate. I bring new ideas, new concepts, a broader spectrum of life experience. I bring those things and I'll work hard for you. But more importantly, I would say take part in the process. Vote. Know who your candidates are, know what they're capable of, know what they can do, and then make sure that they do those things because it's your responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony Potts.
Hey, thanks for having me and having us here. I think it's a great opportunity for us to share the things that we believe. Hopefully you can see from the conversation we've had that all of us are Republicans, but just because you're a Republican doesn't mean you're a true conservative. And we need to make sure that we're electing a true conservative, somebody who honestly believes in their heart and acts in a way that's less government, that gives the control back to the people. And that's my goal. My goal is to make sure that everything that we do is to give back to the will of the people and to make sure that people are, that they're being heard and that they're being validated in their concern, and then we're making decisions that have a positive impact. I have a family that I want to raise here in southeastern Idaho in Bonneville County, and I want them to come back and to want to raise their families here in Bonneville County. So we need to continue to build upon what we have, continue to invite businesses to be here, continue to be a place where people can feel safe and that they can feel like they can care for their families. And I hope that you'll choose me as your candidate at the next primary election. Thank you.
And Bryon Reed, your closing statement.
Thank you. I think you can see by the issues that we've talked about that our commissioners deal with a lot of things that will affect nearly everybody in Bonneville County. That's why it's important that we elect commissioners that first have a good, strong work ethic and will put in the time necessary, attend the meetings, and do what's needed for the county. And then secondly, someone with experience. I have been fortunate to be able to be on the Bonneville County Planning and Zoning Commission for a little over 9 years. I was on the National Potato Promotion Board for 6 years, elected by Idaho growers, and I'm currently serving on the Regional Development Alliance. I like to be involved in productive activities, and I'd like to use that experience to be able to continue to grow this county in the way that will be necessary to be ready to provide all the opportunities that I've had for the future generations.
Thank you, and we thank all of you for being with us today. Commissioner Dave Radford and Jonathan Walker running for Seat 2 in Bonneville County, and Tony Potts and Bryon Reed running for Seat 3. We encourage all of you to vote in the primary election on May 17th. We have included information about each of these candidates here on EastIdahoNews.com and on our Facebook page. Thank you very much for watching.